This is Mona Eltahawy, and as always, fuck the patriarchy. I got my period yesterday and I had two thoughts. One, when is it gonna stop? Perimenopause is kicking my fucking ass. Two, do I have enough products? In these times of social distancing, self-isolating, quarantine, lockdown, shelter in place, stay at home, non-essential, essential, do I have enough products for my period? It made me remember one of the most heart-shattering stories I have ever read about getting your period during war. No water, no menstrual products, no nothing. This is a moment when it is imperative to remember this is not the first time for so many people to experience curfews, lockdowns, shelter in place, disaster, crises. For those of you experiencing your first curfew, lockdown, disaster, crises, you are privileged. Yes, this is a global pandemic, but if this is your first curfew, lockdown, shelter in place, you are privileged because so many people have lived through wars, have lived through famine. How do you socially isolate or social distance as a refugee? How do you social distance as a working class poor person in my country of birth, Egypt, who has to take cramped public transport, or any other country on the continent of my birth, Africa, where you have to take cramped public transport to go to work, a work that you cannot take time from, otherwise you and your family will starve? How do you social distance as a person without a home, someone who's homeless? How do you social distance when you're incarcerated? So again, I understand that for many of you it is difficult to self-isolate, to practice social distancing, to be under quarantine, to be under lockdown, but this is your first disaster. If it's your first disaster, you are privileged. Social distancing is a privilege that many cannot afford. So remember, as you're going through your products, remember, as you're going through the groceries, remember that this is a re-traumatizing time for many. Remember that we are a community, a global community. This is not the first disaster, and we have to learn from those who are going through their nth disaster. And we must always remember, fuck the patriarchy.